So today we're going to go into love and respect in marriage. I don't really think you'd be good at that. That's like not one of your strengths. And how those two things literally can either create a crazy cycle in your marriage where you're perpetually spinning and fighting and cycling down. That's a lame idea. Are you serious? Or they can create this positive upwarding spiral where you're thriving in your marriage, totally connected, ready to join together. And if you're watching this and you're like, beep, I'm going to turn off because I don't respect my husband and I don't think he's able to be respected and I really don't want to respect him, don't stop watching, stay tuned. So on my channel, I want to talk about the things that matter. I want to talk about the things in marriage that people are not talking about intimacy, about sex, about femininity. So if you're not subscribed and you don't have notifications turned on, absolutely subscribe and notify. And if you get something good out of it, make sure you comment below. So today I want you to take a really hard look. How are you showing up in your marriage? I've been divorced and now I've been married almost 11 years with my current husband. And one thing that was absolutely absent in my first marriage was respect. And one thing that I really tried to work on in this marriage is respecting my husband and letting him be the leader of our household. Because if you know me, you know that I'm a strong person and I like to be in control. So in my first marriage where I did not respect him, I was always in control. One of the things my ex-husband said to me that just pierced my heart when we were getting divorced was, "You never thought I was good enough for you." Essentially, he said, "You never respected me. You never gave me the space to be the man that I was supposed to be. You always cut me at the balls and never allowed me to flourish and be the man that I could be because you suffocated me." And it hurt, but it was true. I didn't give him space. I wanted him to do things my way. I wanted him to execute and recruit in our business and lead our business the way I would have. And I didn't give him any space to be himself. I always wanted to change him. Like, it was a horrible situation. I would have hated being married to me. And I don't know if you do any of that in your marriage, but it's taken a lot for me to unwind that stuff. Because those were natural tendencies to keep myself protected, to keep myself guarded, and to make sure that he didn't hurt me. I used those tactics to keep him at a distance, essentially. So if you're someone that would say, my husband doesn't deserve my respect, based on the way he acts, based on the way he shows up, based on what he's done, he doesn't deserve it. You might not like what I'm about to tell you, but you can either be right or you can be happy. But there's no way that you can think that and then act out those thoughts in your actions and be happily married. Because a man at the core, he desires respect. And when he gets respect, he then shows love. It's this cycle that I believe the book is going to talk about, that as a man feels respected, he then gives love. And as a woman feels loved, she then gives respect. And as we positively do this cycle with each other, a marriage can grow and flourish and thrive. But if both of us are in this stance where he says, I'm not going to give love, and she says, I'm not going to give respect, there's no way for you to be flourishing. So you can either be right about what you say about him, or you can stay married. So today I want you to take a really hard look. How are you showing up in your marriage? Would you show you love? Would you want to be married to you based on the way that you're acting? Someone has to stop the cycle. Someone has to change. And so I'm challenging you today that be you. So I don't know if you're like me, but I am a hypercritical person. I'm not just hypercritical of other people, I'm hypercritical of myself. And being married to someone like me is rather challenging because I'm critical, right? So when I wasn't aware of how critical I was, it was really detrimental to my marriage. And one of the things that caused me to not respect my ex-husband was my expectations, my unrealistic expectations of who I wanted him to be. I married someone who was very passive, who wasn't a big time driver, achiever type person, and someone who didn't express their emotions or connect very easily. And I wanted him to literally be the opposite of that in all these categories. So when he would not be that, it would drive me nuts. Like, it would drive me crazy because I'm literally the opposite of that in all those categories. And so consequently, that led me to not respecting him. However, if I would have had perspective back then, I would have seen that his qualities that he's good at, I do not possess, and they could have been strengths in our marriage. However, all I did was hyper focus on what I thought were his weaknesses, and I couldn't see any of his strengths. Because when we start to focus in on something that we don't like, sometimes we end up putting blinders on and we can't see anything else around us. So for example, if your husband leaves his clothes on the floor or leaves his dishes out or just whatever annoys you about him, have you ever noticed that as they do it more and more, you start to build up more momentum and how pissed off and how frustrated you get about it? Because you're hyper focused on the situation. And I would venture to guess that if you have a hard time respecting your husband or thinking of him in a respectful way or just honoring him, who he is, if he bothers you, you are hyper focused on the things that you don't like, that you want to see changed. And your hyper focus is getting you nowhere, because I would venture to guess that he's not changing. He's not doing what you want him to do. And so essentially you're just driving yourself crazy and causing a lot of unnecessary turmoil. You're causing a lot of unnecessary turmoil for you and those around you. Because he's not suffering because of your unrealistic expectations. You're the only one that's suffering. So for your sake, ladies, I want you to start to check in. Do I have any unrealistic expectations of my spouse? Like, what are they not meeting? And did they ever agree to meet those expectations? Because our unset expectations will kill our marriage. So as much as it pains me to say, the problem wasn't him. He was fine. It was me. I was at a Date with Destiny event a couple years ago, and Tony Robbins asked, what does it take for you to be happy? I want you to write out in your marriage, what does it take for you to feel joyful and be happy? And I started to write down, we have to go on date nights, we have to have sex, he has to get me flowers every once in a while, I want alone time with him, I want him to be a good dad, like I want to be able to talk to him. Like, I mean, my list just kept going on and on and on. And I want you to think about it for you. What would it take for you to be happy in your marriage? And I'm gonna give you a second. So what would it take for you to be happy in your marriage? And my list was huge. And then he goes to another couple in the audience and he says, okay, so-and-so and so-and-so, what does it take for you to be happy? And the wife starts to say, well, we've had a rough couple years. My husband almost died of I think thyroid cancer or something like that. And I used to have this big, big list. And now that he's well, literally the only thing that it takes for us to be happy is for us to be together. I don't need a bunch of stuff. I just need to be with him. And because I thought he was going to die at one point in our life, that's enough. So when you think about all the things that frustrate you about your spouse and all the things that bother you and all the things that you're so hung up on, in an eternal perspective, do those really matter? Does him leaving his clothes on the floor or the dish where he does, or not helping with the dishes, or farting, or the noises that he makes, or whatever it is, does that really matter? Or have you made it such a big deal in your head that it's overtaken you? Because when I wasn't aware of that stuff, I wasn't aware. It was super important to me in my current marriage, being married to Skylar, to respect him. And so on a walk today, I asked him, when do you feel disrespected for me? What are the things that I do? I wanted to give you guys some inside advice from a husband. And for him, it came a lot around business and his goals and his dreams. He said, when I share an idea with you, and if you pick it apart with questions, because I'm super detailed, so I want to know all this stuff, how's it going to happen, and you don't support me and you kind of undermine me and pick it apart, that's when I don't feel respected. And so I'd be curious, when you think about your spouse, they come to us as their safe space, and they share their goals and their dreams and their hopes. Or at least they do if you've supported them in the past, right? If you're a cheerleader for them, they'll come to you with things that they don't share with anyone. And are you keeping that sacred and special and lifting them up? Or are you using your words to tear them down? Because you have the power as a spouse to penetrate them sometimes deeper to the core than anybody else. You have the ability to bring out all the flaws and remind them of all the things that they don't want to acknowledge in themselves. So you play a huge, huge role in where they're going in their life and their energy and their excitement and their passion. So are you honoring them in that space? Are you respecting them in that space? Especially if you run a business together with your spouse. I ran a business with Skylar for 8 years. So I knew all of his deficiencies. I knew all the areas that he could improve on, right? So was I focusing on building him up or tearing him down? When I think about when we first got together, one of the things that I used to do in my marriage was when we were out with other people, I would joke about my spouse's like shortcomings or their quirky things or the goofy things about them, but I would do it in a way that made me feel better about myself. It's almost like when we met someone new, I would have to joke about him or put him down, but it'd be kind of like a joke, but I would really just be putting him down to make me feel better. So I want you to just check in. The next time you're feeling really good about yourself and you just made a joke about your spouse, what was that about? Right? What are you trying to point out? Like, what are you doing? Like, what's happening? Like, I wish someone would have like pointed it out, because now I'm really hyper aware of it when I go to dinner with other couples and the wife gives out little jabs and like cuts him down and continues to cut him down. And we all laugh about it kind of, but it's really not funny. Right? I take jokes about the other spouse really, really seriously. And I make sure that I don't overdo it in that. Like, because you can joke about something, about quirky things about people, but sometimes that stuff gets under their skin and you bring out things that don't necessarily need to be brought out, like things they're working on. We all have things we're working on, but are you putting too much attention to it on your spouse when you're around other people? So respect doesn't just tie into your everyday life. I believe it deeply, deeply ties into our intimate life too. Because if you don't respect your husband and you're not giving him respect, I can almost guarantee that he's not giving you love. And so if you don't feel loved and he doesn't feel respected, there's no way that those two forces can come together and be intimate on a deep, deep level, because resentment gets built up. You hold back stuff. You put walls and space in between each other. So you might have sex, but it's not connected sex. It's not deep sex. It's not intimate, like love making. And that was the case for me. Like, unless I had alcohol or some type of substance in my body, I didn't feel connected. Like, it wasn't fun. It wasn't a thing. So to sum this up, I want to give you a challenge. So whether you feel like you respect your husband pretty well, or if you feel that you don't, the challenge is the same. I want you to begin to admire and respect your husband and start to tell him about it. I want you to think and make a list of 30 things that you appreciate about him, 30 ways that you're grateful for who he is. And over the next couple weeks, I want you to just begin to share those little things with him. Maybe it's a note, maybe it's a text message, maybe it's an email, maybe you say one out loud. I want you to begin to build this habit of respecting and admiring your husband. And I would love to see and I'd love to hear how it changes your dynamic, how it changes your relationship, and if he begins to show up with more love. I would absolutely love to hear that, because I know that it works in our marriage. So I truly, truly hope it works in your marriage. So if you've enjoyed this video and you've gotten this far, absolutely make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you comment below. It helps YouTube like me more. And if you turn on your notifications, you'll get more amazing videos just like this. I can't wait to come back and share another one.